Hey, everybody! You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Enjoy the movie. The movie begins with Africans roughly and traumatically capturing chimpanzees in the jungle and shipping them away in crates. One animal, a female named Bright-Eyed, is taken to the Gensis Research Center. After testing an experimental drug for Alzheimer's disease on her, she excels at a puzzle she could never before solve. Scientist Will Rodman, who has been developing a viral drug, Alt-112, must use her as an example to prove to the committee that the drug is effective and can be tested on humans. However, right before the demonstration, Jasnolazka became restless and aggressive. It breaks out of the hands of laboratory technicians and causes chaos in the whole building, and then breaks right into the presentation, and the guard kills the chimpanzee with a gun. After this, the board rejects Rodman's development and his boss, Jacobs, orders the rest of the primates to be put to sleep. He also orders Rodman to start over and find the cause of this aggression. Franklin, Will's co-worker, finds a hidden baby chimpanzee. It turned out that Bright-Eyed got into the lab pregnant. Her behavior was not caused by the effects of the drug, but by concern for her child. Will has to take the chimpanzee home to avoid being put to sleep with the others, but at home he already has someone to look after. His father Charles suffers from dementia, and for the scientist, finding a cure is also a personal problem. After 3 years, the chimpanzee was named Caesar. He immediately showed signs of high intelligence, and Will decided to keep him at home to keep an eye on him. By a specific feature of the glowing iris, Rodman determined that Alt-112 was genetically transferred from the mother to the cub, and since it was not necessary to repair damaged brain cells, the drug spurred his mental development. Meanwhile, his father's disease is progressing, so Will steals some vials of Alt-112 from the labs and administers the drug to Charles, and it helps. Since the morning, his father has been playing the piano with rapt attention, although it seemed a long time ago that he had forgotten all the notes. Caesar passionately watches the children. He would not mind to play with them. For this reason, the monkey ran away from home. He climbs into the neighbor's yard, but will manage to save him from the neighbor with a bat at the very last moment, but the monkey still got wounded. Will and Caesar have a pleasant encounter with veterinarian Caroline. She is amazed that her patient can communicate using gestures. Later she comes to his house to check on the primate. The whole company goes for a walk in the National Reserve. Will removes the leash from the pet and gives him the opportunity to run through the forest on his own. 5 more years pass. The scientist meets with the veterinarian, and Caesar is already quite a mature man. He can snap back if necessary. He doesn't like the collar now. He doesn't want to be a pet. Will brings Caesar to the research center and tells the tragic story of his birth. The chimpanzee perfectly understands human speech. Later the scientists tell about their research to the girl and that Caesar is constantly evolving. His IQ has doubled in the last year. Over the years, Will's father's body has learned to resist the viral drug, and the disease began to return to him. One day he climbed into a neighbor's car and crashed it. The neighbor started yelling at his grandfather and pointing his finger at him. Caesar regarded this as an attack and rushed to the defense of his friend. The powerful primate easily put the man on his shoulder blades and almost bit off his finger. Caesar was taken away by animal control to be placed in a monkey nursery. Will is worried that Caesar has never socialized with other monkeys, but the owner of the kennel, Hank, assures him that he will be fine. Only then Caesar realizes that he is locked in 4 walls and starts to panic. He runs to the call of some guy and gets into a cramped cage, which is where he will have to live most of the time. There are dozens of other monkeys rampaging around in neighboring cages. Will takes on the task of developing a more aggressive strain of the Alt-113 virus. In the scientific center, he confesses to the chief that all this time injected the drug into his father and observed not only the restoration of cognitive abilities, but also the growth of intelligence. He immediately gets the go-ahead for further laboratory research. In the kennel, Caesar is fed slop, and the main guard Dodge Landon mocks him in every possible way. With chalk, the poor animal draws himself a window that was in his room. In the laboratory, brought a new batch of monkeys and immediately draws the attention of a shabby male cobra. It is he becomes a test subject for the experiment. During its conduct, Franklin accidentally inhaled the vapor of the drug. In the nursery, the monkeys were released for a walk and Caesar was immediately attacked by the alpha male rocket because of his clothes. Both primates are knocked out by Dodge using a tranquilizer. Koba rapidly gets smarter, but the lab technician feels noticeably worse. He sees that his friend is mistreated, but he can do nothing. Caesar is finally disappointed in him and begins to think over a way of escape. At night, Dodge brings his friends to look at the animals. Caesar grabs the guy and steals his folding knife to use it as a lockpick. The first thing he does is release Buck the giant gorilla, who never left his enclosure. Having lured Rocket out of his cage, Caesar sics Buck on him in front of everyone and the latter can only bow down to the new alpha male. Meanwhile, Will doesn't have time to give his father a new drug because he dies. Koba shows incredible results during the tests and Jacob speeds up the research as much as possible, ignoring the issue of safety. This does not suit Will and he quits. But what's good for chimps can be seriously harmful to humans. Franklin is getting worse, coughing up blood all the time. Will bribes Hank to take Caesar away before the court decides, but the primate looks at the traitor and the leash in his hands, closes the cage and turns away from Will. Caesar makes Rocket his foreman and bribes the other apes with cookies. He also forms a bond with the intelligent orangutan Morris, who can also communicate using gestures. After memorizing the code to the lock, Caesar manages to escape outside through the roof of the nursery. He returned home, but not to a human, but to get the Alt-113 drug, which he then sprayed on all of his subordinate apes. In the morning, in the former primates, the irises of their eyes were dyed bright green. In Genesis, Alt-113 is produced on an industrial scale, and meanwhile Franklin, who had inhaled just a little of the drug, is found dead. Dodge sees Caesar break out of his cage and tries to chase him back in with a stun gun, but Caesar fights him back. No and no, repeats the talking monkey and lets all his relatives out. Caesar locks one of the guards in a cage and kills his assailant by pointing a jet of water at him as Dodge waves the stun gun in front of him. The monkey army escapes from the kennel and splits into several squads and heads toward the city. Will moves in the looted nursery and finds empty drug flasks. With the streets of the city covered in leaves, this gang of monkeys advances towards gates. Caesar shows the others where to run, destroying the security cameras in the process. They release their kin, including Koba, from their cages. Jacobs learns of Franklin's death because of Alt-113, and immediately the primates start hunting him. After getting to a helicopter, he asks a policeman to destroy all the animals. Next was a totally raid on the local zoo. The army of primates continues to replenish. Forged a fence, they dismantled the population of the metropolis on spears. In panic, the apes run through the streets and through offices. Two thugs, Maurice and Buck, attack police cars. Also, the gang learn the joys of urban transportation. Advancing over the Golden Gate Bridge, the monkeys seek to get into the reserve. Their path is blocked by a squad of policemen who are about to open fire on them. Realizing the danger, most of the primates move along the supporting structures, out of sight of the cops. The rest are followed by a mounted squad beating the monkeys with clubs. This is also where Will and Caroline arrive. During the battle, Caesar forbids Buck from killing a human. A sniper from a helicopter shoots one of the apes, and the strongest apes overturn the bus, using it as a shield in front of the police cordon. Suddenly, Caesar rides up to the cops on horseback and commands them to attack them. Dozens of primates start attacking them from above and below. The disarmed and crippled cops only had to flee. The next moment, however, a helicopter appeared and a machine gunner began to work on the apes. Jacobs ordered the gunner to kill Caesar, and Buck stood up to defend the leader. He jumped into the helicopter and made it crash. The brave gorilla goes to the monkey paradise in the arms of his commander, but Jacobs does not want to die. Hooked on the helicopter, he begs Caesar to help him, but he just turns away and leaves. But Cuba, on the contrary, helps the evil man as soon as possible to go to the dust. The pack of monkeys finally reaches the reserve. Will rushes after them in a police car. He calls Caesar, but Koba swoops down on him. The ringleader puts the aggressor in his place. The hero apologizes and wants him to return home, but Caesar has already found a new home and a new family.